Hello everyone, my name is Karina. I go by Kartzy on social media, and welcome back to the Kyoshi Warrior cosplay series for one final episode before the complete reveal. Today we are making samurai armor. This has been a long-awaited video and quite frankly the most difficult part of the Kyoshi Warrior costume. Now, I have very limited experience making armor. The only experience I have is making foam armor for my Princess Allura costume. Now, I made the armor pieces months ago, but due to school and a family situation, I couldn't really tackle the project till now, after finals. So I spent 7 days straight making this armor, and boy, it was a lot of work. Not only did it take a lot of time to construct, it also took a lot of time to edit this video because of the sheer amount of information that I have to communicate to you, the viewer. Going into this costume, I knew I wanted to make samurai armor, and I thought it was going to be relatively easy, until I saw all of these different styles and combinations and types that go into making samurai armor. I fell down a rabbit hole of research, and my first easy decision to make samurai armor turned into a very long process in which I was discovering what style and what type I was going to make. The main research I used for this project was a website called sengokudaimyo.com, which is a website created by the late Anthony J. Bryant, a historian who focused in medieval Japan. Now, he passed away in 2013, but his website is now maintained by his students who honor his memory. It is the single most reliable source of information I found that explained to me how everything worked. There is more than just samurai armor on this website. I will leave a link down below, and I really encourage you to go check it out. Now, before we begin dissecting the Kyoshi Warrior uniform, I want to show you what samurai armor looks like and tell you all the different pieces so you understand what pieces I chose to translate the Kyoshi Warrior design into reality. Now, this is a full suit of samurai armor, and it's broken down into many pieces, such as the Maadate, Kabuto, Menpo, Shikoro, Sode, Do, Kote, Kusazuri, Teko, Haidate, and Tsunyate. Now, off the bat, I knew I was not making all of these, but rather very specific pieces. Now, let's dissect the Kyoshi Warrior design. So the chest piece that wraps around the body most resembles the Do. The shoulder pieces look very similar to Sode, and those flaps look like Kusazuri. Now, just because all these pieces connect together doesn't mean that they're one piece. And when you're researching this, you have to understand that they each have different styles and types and evolutions throughout history. So let's start with the Do. Now, this is the most important detail for the Kyoshi Warrior design, especially when I'm translating it to reality, because you're gonna see it the most. It's the biggest piece. It's the center focus. So I had a big decision to make when I came to determining what type and what style of Do I was making. So the design of the armor for the Kyoshi Warriors is very tight and wraps around the body. And because of this, I knew right off the bat that whatever type I chose needed to have hinges. Their design has waist definition, so I knew automatically that I wanted to keep the waistline reduced as much as possible. So that eliminates side openings completely because that would add inches to the waistline. That left me with two options: Gome Haramaki and Sanme Haramaki. Now, the first one has 4 spots for hinges and the second one has 2. But I ended up going with Gome Haramaki because I thought that because it had more spots for hinges, it would best wrap around the form and give me that silhouette that I wanted. Now that I knew what type of samurai armor I wanted to make, I had to figure out what style the Do was going to be. I had a lot of difficulty picking this one because there was just so many possibilities, but I ended up going with Nue Nobedo. According to the website, Nue Nobedo are cuirasses of Ayuzane construction, or made to look like Ayuzane. The term means roughly sewn spread and refers to the horizontal lacing of the Shita Garami to produce the rows of Ayuzane. This is a truly elegant form of armor. It can be made in any of several types, but most seem to have been clamshells. So I knew my type, Gome Haramaki, and I knew my style, Nue Nobedo. And with that, I was able to continue and get started with the project. So let's start talking about the Kusazuri. The Kusazuri dangle from the Do, and it's probably the element that makes samurai armor so iconic. A set of Kusazuri is the number of vertical rows of tassets, and lames are the individual plates in a set. So the Kyoshi Warriors have 4 sets with 3 lames each, hanging from the do. But I find this very funny because in history, the less lames you have in the armor, the cheaper your armor is. So the more lames you have, the higher your status is. For a lot of history, Kusazuri is directly attached to the do, but there is a period in time in the 1500s where a detachable Kusazuri is developed. And I find this very fascinating because it is attached to a thin cord of leather, and then you use a bunch of ties to connect it to the do. And this became detachable so that samurai could cross shallow rivers and even to make storage of their armor easier. I was very tempted to make that version. However, because of the way the armor is, I thought it would be best for me not to complicate it with having it be separate, but connect the Kusazuri directly to the do. So that is exactly what I did. So the Sode is a piece that connects to the do via the wachagami on the strap. I decided to go with the late 16th century style of Sode called the Tosode. And this is a type of Sode that comes after Osode. And it most resembles the Kusazuri in style and pattern. Now there's a type of Sode in the Edo period that actually has a larger panel at first and the narrower panels in the afterwards. And this type of Sode is very similar to what the Kyoshi Warriors wear in their design. So seeing as I have an example in history of a Sode like that, similar to the Kyoshi Warriors, I decided to take that larger panel at first and then do exactly that with the Tosa Sode. So without further ado, let's get started.
Now the difficult thing about this design is that on the sides, there is 4 spots where there are hinges, but those are multiple hinges. So what I mean is down here, as you can see, I have this shape going on right here, and then there are 4 hinges.
Okay, so one of my biggest difficulties I'm gonna have with constructing this armor is that I'm a woman, and I have a very different shape than a man's body. And what I mean by that is this armor is meant for a man's torso, and I am curvy. So it's going to be just slightly difficult to get it the right proportions for me. So I'm gonna have to do a lot of measuring and figuring out and making sure that the end result looks like a Kyoshi Warrior but still has that feel of samurai armor. So to figure out the top point, I am measuring from one point to the other and figuring out the distance I want to do. So for now, I'm going to start with 10 inches. Then I'm just going to make a general estimate from the point where I think it should be the lowest in the front, all the way down to about under my ribcage. To pattern the do, I used cardboard and formed basic rectangles based off my measurements and the number of panels that I wanted. That moment when you remember you have a box cutter. I made sure to add extra room to the top and bottom of each panel so that each panel could have overlap on top of each other when they are weaved together. So currently I'm trying to figure out how to make the side panels. Okay, so I went to the store and I got these hinges, and I'm going to be using this
for the sides of the Do armor. Now the way it's gonna work is the front panel is gonna be cut at a slant, so that the pieces have an angle like this, and then the other piece will be straight. And although it looks crooked like this, when you put it like this, it's gonna fold more around the body and hopefully give me the shape that I want. So as you can see right here is like my basic plan on how I'm working with those hinges. No idea if it's gonna work, but I'm going to try. When cutting out the pieces, I cut out 2 pieces of Worbla for each piece of the armor. And these will get molded together later on. Okay, hello. I am currently working on this piece because I thought it'd be the easiest for me to get reaccustomed to Worbla because it's been a while because I had to deal with finals. So now I am getting used to applying the material together because no longer am I using foam as a core inside the Worbla, but majority of these pieces is just gonna be Worbla on top of Worbla. So it's a lot of manipulation. The only parts of this Do armor, although this has a very particular name that's not Do, that has the foam core is this bit right here. And that's just for me to get it thicker and to get it to stand up a little better and easier to manipulate. But as you can see, it looks lovely right there. And what I noticed about getting the proportions right with that piece compared to the cartoon is that this is supposed to be about the same level as the collar of the kimono. So as long as they're about the same height, then they're proportional to the outfit. Now what I am contemplating is whether or not to change up the design of this piece, because in actual samurai armor, they have a over top layering effect that goes like this. And my only issue with this is I don't want to damage the puff that happens inside. So I have to be very careful with if I add 1 or 2, because I think it'll be a really nice element to the costume and make it make a little bit more sense since I'm trying to replicate an idea of what samurai dress is supposed to look like to bring this Kyoshi Warrior dress to reality. So what I am doing first is I am shortening pieces a little bit so that I am able to fold over edges to create a smooth look. Now I'm going to put this one on top and start folding over. So that the edge looks like this instead of this. And now what I'm doing is I'm helping mold this into the shape that I want, and I'll let it sit there to cool. Okay, so I'm gonna show you something very exciting in a moment. It's like off in the corner. Now this is my weaving pattern, and what happens is this is a completely different string. But right here, this is the number of holes that happen on the sides for the Sode. And And then this is the number of holes that happen in between this. So here is an example. I haven't drilled in the 2 top holes here yet because my Dremel battery is charging. But as you can see, this is the number of holes that happen. And over here is an example of my tester for the weaving pattern. So as you can see, we have the crossover X, and then underneath is where the thread is traveling. And you can see where this part here is, especially right here. It's just over here, that side, that part of it is shortened. And then down here, a monstrosity happens in which I make like 1,000,000 holes in a very specific pattern. Okay, so this front bit has this shape right now. Now technically this is a shape that is common in samurai armor, although I did make it a bit too wide compared to where the straps are. Now, I have an issue with this. One, again, it's too wide, and the other problem is that it's simply just not the shape of a Kyoshi Warrior. And what happened was I was so obsessed with replicating samurai armor that I came to a point where I didn't think about the front shape, because the Kyoshi Warrior shape is completely different than this. It has more of a heart shaped, well, this is a completely different shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to do some surgery on this piece by reheating it even though I have my paint, and going in to recurve it into the shape that I need it to be. Okay, so I've marked the placement of where my grommets are going to go, and pretty much they're going to look like this. All pretty like that. And I'm going to Dremel the holes to be able to set them. Okay, so this is how everything's gonna go. I'm not putting hinges on these 2 parts right here because what I believe, I have to double check, but I believe there is a cord that goes from here to over here that attaches this to the armor instead of it being attached with a hinge. So here I have my hinges, and it's gonna go like this. Now, I'm having an insane amount of difficulty figuring out how I am attaching these because hot glue is not going to work on this thing. The costume gets extremely hot. I'm in an extremely hot environment, being Florida, and if so much as only like a little bit of it melts, it's going to melt on top of the silk, and I cannot let that happen. So it's gonna be a challenge to attach to these, honestly. Okay, I'm about to do something very, very scary, and that is drill holes into the front. Now, originally I had taped the back, but I realized this was a cop-out and that I will never be happy with this if I spent all this time and effort and I just taped the back. So I am going in and I'm going to make holes and actually weave this like I intended to. It's just very, very scary. Okay, this is how it's working out so far. I may have to tighten some of them because some things are really finalized. I have to go back with the heat gun and remold certain corners that I fixed so that it would all match up on the sides. But so far it's getting very interesting and I think really cool. I'm losing steam. This is my 5th day straight working on these armor from like morning to whatever time I stop at night, and I'm getting really tired. So what I am doing right now is I am going into the back panels and I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the front, which is I'm going to mark all the holes that I'm drilling and all the pieces, then I'm going to drill them, weave them together, and then see proportionally how everything is fitting, and then do the same thing to, I believe it's pronounced Kusazuri, and the sides. Oh my gosh, this is a lot of work. Like my fingers are starting to die on me. But I'll get through, I mean, I want this to be the end result anyway. So I have a lot of weaving ahead of me. These are just some of the pieces. I have some pieces already up, and I recruited my wonderful mother to help me paint some green cord, because as you can see, there is a lot to paint and a lot to do. Okay, so the way I'm working this out is I have both sides attached. So for this one, for the sides, I'm only going to do 2 rows instead of the 3 in the front. So let's start this. So for the top row, it gets 6. Right here gets 2 holes each, so that when I weave the X here, I can attach it also to the top, and then they get stuck together. By the time you get to the 3rd row, that extends down like it does here, and then it creates another X, extends down, and creates an X. So the bottom row always has only 4 dots instead of 6. Okay, these are all of the pieces I have made so far. There's a lot of weaving that still has to happen to some of the pieces. I had to figure out the attachments for the tops, but this is everything I have done so far, and oh my gosh, it's day 6. So on the sides, as you can see, the front panel is at an angle and this is straight, but that created an effect where suddenly it wants to be crooked again. So I'm trying to figure out how to balance out that effect. To fix this problem, what I am doing is I am angling the pieces, and I'm going to hit this with a heat gun, and then once this becomes moldable again, I'm going to fold it backwards, and then this will create the edge that I need to continue doing the pieces. By the time I got to the Kusazuri, I was running low on Worbla. So what I decided to do was to back the Worbla with foam, and I painted the foam a very, very dark brown after folding the Worbla around it. Okay, currently it is midnight. I am probably not getting any sleep today because in the morning, well, in approximately 8 hours-ish, I will be out for a photo shoot, so I need to get this done. So here is what I have accomplished so far. As you can see, this much ties in. I have to tighten things, and right now what I'm doing is I am attaching the oh my gosh, what is the name? And right now I am attaching the Kusazuri. My biggest concern right now is the back, because that's going to be a bit of a hassle for me to figure out how to solve the issues. But I'll figure it out somehow, and this will work, and despite not getting any sleep for tomorrow's photo shoot, I was like, I will survive. Okay, so right here, as you can see, this is the armor so far, because I am not even done yet. I'm just tying it right now with the Obi to get everything nice and settled. Make attachments for the Sode on both shoulders. Figure out how I'm attaching the last one onto the armor, and then also figure out a closure. Okay, I don't know if you can see this, but right here is an example I am looking at, and I'm trying to figure out the attachment happening here with the toggle. And what I realized is that I forgot what this piece is called, but basically they created, this is the two eyelets, they created a loop in which the toggle is connected to this loop, and then the toggle can sit inside of the bottom loop and then create tension from gravity, which keeps it in place so that you can take it on and off easily. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to recreate this piece right here, and then I'm going to create what I need to right here. So I'm attaching the toggle to the Sode, but remember I'm doing my Sode very different than traditional Japanese armor because I am trying to mimic that of the Kyoshi Warrior silhouette. So it's becoming a little bit more inventive as I go. So I have gotten it to the length that I want. And this whole project I've been using the same cord that I used on the cote, and that cord is fusible. So if I hit it with heat, I'm able to fuse them together. This is a big part of the costume where I deviated away from history and invented my own way to attach the Sode, so as to best mimic the Kyoshi Warrior silhouette. Okay, I am staring at the back, and what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to make an eyelet here and here for now to see before I even touch the section over here, and then put another one in the opposite farthest point so that I can put a tie in each and tie them. And hopefully that will create like enough tension to do what it's supposed to do, but again, I don't know how everything's gonna work out. And this is the finished Kyoshi Warrior armor. I believe this is one of the best things I have ever made. It took so much time and energy to accomplish. I made this in 7 complete days, one of which was an all-nighter where I didn't get a moment of sleep. There are more than 100 holes that I drilled and then had to weave together, not to mention the numerous pieces of Worbla I had to cut to create this. This whole armor is the equivalent of 1 jumbo sheet of Worbla. I remember my hand was hurting a lot after cutting all those pieces out. My favorite part has got to be the hinges. When I started making costumes, I never imagined that I would eventually get to the point where I'd be starting to use hardware. And this was just the project I needed to open my eyes to all the possibilities of everything that I can use to make costumes, and that I'm only limited by my imagination. So I am very excited to see what else I can make in the future. In the reveal video, I will release the final look of the costume, in which I will be wearing everything: the makeup, the hair, armor, kimono, hakama, everything that I have made so far in this series. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Kyoshi Warrior cosplay series, and for leaving all your lovely comments on my previous videos. It has been an amazing journey going through this whole build, and I can't wait to show you the final reveal. See you next time!